Welcome back. Today I want to talk about communication and specifically conversation. I love Joe Rogan and I love Bill Maher, John Oliver. I could run the gamut of people that I enjoy watching, their shows or their podcasts. And one of the things I watched lately was Bill Maher's got a new podcast out called Club Random. And I like Bill Maher. I love his show on Real Time with Bill Maher and HBO. But I've been I've been a fan of Joe Rogan longer than I've been a fan of Bill. But I like them both. And one of the things I've noticed on Bill's show is that I was trying to figure out like who was a better conversationalist and what are Bill's strengths and weaknesses. And for me, I think Bill is a better moderator. Like on his show on HBO, he typically has a panel. I mean, his show's broken up into a couple of different segments. He comes out and he has like a 3 to 5 minute monologue, warming up the audience. And then he walks over for a second segment to a 2-chair setup and a table where he has a one-on-one interview with somebody for a few minutes. And then segment 3, he moves over to his big desk where he's got a panel of guests. In the past, he's had, 3, 4 people. I know in his overtime show, it's usually the 3 guests and then the person who he had the second segment with. So that would be 4. Now, again, this is just from what I've seen so far. But now it's like 2 people on his panel. And Bill has his little cue cards and he has, thoughts or ideas or things that he wants to discuss with these particular people. I imagine that's why he has these people on his show. These are specific topics I want to discuss, and this is your area of expertise. That's why I'm assuming that's why he has them on his show. So at that, Bill asks pointed questions and he lets these people discuss, debate, whatever, on his show. And he'll interject every once in a while with his thoughts. So he listens to these 2, people give their opinion or facts or information on whatever they're discussing. And then Bill will kind of jump in from time to time. And I think of that as being like a moderator. You think of like a presidential, campaign when they have, the nominees are up on stage and you've got somebody from the news is typically, at the table, saying, "Oh, sir, your 2 minutes is up," or whatever, or "I've got to stop you from interrupting. The other candidate's got to speak." Like that's the moderator, kind of like a referee. And I think that's what Bill does pretty good on his show. Sometimes he loses his, the people that are on the panel or they start fighting with each other and it's, he's got to wrangle them in and really almost be like a referee and get in between and be like, hey, this is a 60-minute show. We can't keep going on and on about this stuff. So next topic. So I think Bill's been doing this for a very long time, and it's very similar to the way his old show used to be, Politically Correct, where he was a moderator. Now, Bill's also a stand-up comedian and he's an actor. He's been in, TV movies and film and a few television episodes, I imagine. So, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to find his light. He knows, when to say his lines or things like that. So at that point, this is critical when it comes to communication, right? Because Bill I think he says that he's in his late 60s. Joe's in his mid 50s. I'm 49. I'll be 50 in a few months. I've been doing this for a long time. I've acted, I've modeled, but my background in communication is working in motorsports. So when I worked for NASCAR, I worked for a company called Racing Radios. I was responsible for all the two-way communication for all of what was then the Busch Series communication and the team's communication. So all the officials and the teams. So I didn't listen to, like every single radio channel. That was a lot, but I just made sure all the communication was clear. If somebody if the crew chief was driving or talking to the driver could hear and respond. Same thing with all the officials and all the track, fire, and safety people, just making sure the communications were clear going, from one to another. So I was more like one of those old switchboard operators, just making sure that everything was going through. So at that point, when I watch some of these conversations, especially on Bill's new show, Club Random, it seems pretty random to me. Now, he's new at doing this kind of podcast thing. He said he wants to do this for fun. It's like one day a week that he does this. He said he was going to have celebrities and TikTokers and YouTubers and people like that on there, people that he normally couldn't get on his show. And so far, I've just seen a lot of celebrities. So, I think he had a TikToker on the other day. So good for you, Bill, for spreading the wealth and having some people who might not, have the availability to, reach a broader audience. You're helping them, but the guy he had on's got like 15 million subscribers or followers on TikTok. So I'd put him up there with famous. This is not somebody who's kind of up and coming. Anyway, I want to get back to my bigger point, and then we'll come back and address these other things in here in a second. But with Joe, I consider Joe to be a conversationalist. Joe has these long format, and I'm sure a lot of you've seen a show. They're like 3-hour long conversations, and he's never for a loss of words. Whoever he has on, doesn't matter who his guest is, Joe will carry them. If they run out of things to say, if they finished a point or something like that, and Joe will move on to the next thing. He does this seamlessly time after time again, because I just think that's who Joe is as a person. He's said many times he's curious. He loves to talk to people. So and he's got a pretty big social circle. Bill talks about not being married, not having kids. I don't know how big his social circle is away from work. How often is he having conversations with people? Joe converses with his wife, his kids, his friends on a regular basis. So when he goes into a studio and turns on the camera, it's second nature. It doesn't feel like you're watching a reality show. When you watch a reality show where like they're following like Ozzy Osbourne around his house, or Gene Simmons, or any of these other people, the Real Housewives, there's a certain amount of production where, there's a guy walking around with a camera, and there's several cameras mounted. Joe, it just feels like he's having a conversation with somebody else, and we're voyeurs, just watching unfold right in front of us. And Bill's kind of feels like a reality show, the way it's set up, because he's not stationary. They're not using microphones, as far as like a stationary microphone like Joe and most other podcasters do. And they're not wearing headphones or ear monitors like I wear. I used to wear headphones, and they just got to be uncomfortable after a while. I wore a headset for years, in motorsports. So I was getting tired of it. So I got these studio ear monitors. They're molded ear monitors. So I can hear myself and how loud I need to be or how quiet I need to be. So I'm not over modulating my microphone, because if you talk too loud, sometimes it'll get distorted and you won't be able to hear what I'm saying. So that's the importance of having something where you can hear yourself. You can't do that with earbuds. You can't do that when you're talking on your phone. Yes, you hear yourself, through the air, but right now my audio is being fed into a system which is being broadcast back to me simultaneously. So I'm hearing myself. The benefit of this is that you have a tendency not to step on somebody when they're talking. You're listening, and you're actively listening to what they're saying. You're also watching their verbal cues. And Mike, I'm sorry. We'll talk about Killer Mike. Killer Mike was on Bill Maher's show recently, and they're just kind of set up at the bar. And, I don't know. You'd have to watch a couple of episodes and tell me what your thoughts are, because originally he was set up at like 2 chairs, and then he moved over to the bar in his house, and he had Howie Mandel on the other day, and this young TikToker, and now they're on a couch. So they're all over the place in the studio, and just the level of consistency is not there. So the level of audio consistency and video consistency is not there. You watch Joe's show, or pretty much anybody else's podcast, or even like mine, it's the same setup. I have the same lights in the same place. My microphone's the same place. My camera's in the same place, trying to provide consistency. Now, I know that Bill wants to have this kind of cozy, this is in my house. I call this room Club Random. This is where he has parties and things like that. And I get all that. But I feel like it could be done better. And so this video is not supposed to be like a critique so much of Bill, but just, especially if you're starting out and you want to start a podcast. I watched hundreds of videos on what to do and what I should buy and what do I need to set up. And I looked up what was Joe Rogan using. So I saw that he was using a Shure SM7B, and so I ordered that. And I saw a lot of people were using that. So when it comes to a microphone, and then what studio lights, what camera, I've got a mirrorless Canon camera. So I just looked at all what do I need. And when you look at how Joe has a conversation, it's the two camera setup. So whenever Joe's talking, the camera's on him. Whenever his guest is speaking, the camera's on them. And then when there's a little bit more of like a volley, think of like tennis, I'm hitting the ball to you, you're hitting it back, and it's, going back and forth pretty fast, the conversation. Then Jamie, who is Joe's production assistant, has the third camera kind of over the whole setting. So you see both people at the same time and more of the whole room. I use just a one camera setup because it's just me. And anytime I ever have guests on, I have them on with my service that I'm using to produce this show, which is similar to Zoom. It's called Restream. So I have them on remotely because I just don't have the space, to have, several people in here. And I do everything myself. I'm hitting, end record, start record. I'm doing it all myself while I'm talking to you at the same time. And that took time. It took time getting to learn how to speak into the camera, and I've been talking all my life. You wouldn't think it'd be that difficult, but apparently it is for a lot of people. But I guess because I've done some acting before and modeling, like I said, figuring out where to find my light, and then, looking directly into the camera. So I'm talking to you as you're watching this, and it feels like I'm talking to you. At least I hope that's how it feels to you. I hope it feels like I'm talking with you and not at you. And that's sometimes how I feel it is with Bill. So when I look at conversationalists, I look at Joe as being one of the best of them, because he constantly is actively listening to his guests. He's hearing what they're saying. As they're talking, he's not trying to figure out what point he wants to make, or what his response is going to be to whatever they're saying. He's listening, formulating at the same time. But where you ever like talk to somebody and they're constantly just firing back at you whenever you're done, and it's like, were you even really listening to what I was saying, or were you trying to impress me with what you had to say? And I feel that way with every one of these episodes with Bill. And it's kind of disappointing. So as far as conversationalists go, I would say Joe is probably one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to being a conversationalist. He's got great stories. He's got anecdotal, stories. He's got Jamie there if they ever need to look up facts, or I'll ask Jamie, hey, look this up, make sure I'm talking about the right thing. And that way Joe kind of has his credibility. Yeah, over the last couple of years, there's been a whole lot of nonsense, but I look at the bigger picture as far as how Joe is a conversationalist and the communicator. I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you two different interviews. One is on Joe's, one is on this new Club Random, and they're both with the same person because I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison just so you could kind of see what I'm talking about. So we'll do the first one is from Joe Rogan's show, and his guest on here is Killer Mike.
It died quick. That cotton, because seeing as how they're the biggest investor in Africa and China was growing cotton, that didn't go well for black people 500 years ago. So I was just like, please don't let cotton grow on the moon. I don't like, it's moon landing slave trade. I have to learn Mandarin and shit. So do you think they actually up shop before us, or is America's number one? Because it feels like, I feel like we lost that day.
When China landed on the moon?
Yeah, I feel like, oh shit. I've grown up, like I'm black, I'm American, but I like America. You know what I'm saying? I like America.
I love America.
Yeah, exactly. Like like Frederick Douglass, when that, like, what the fuck am I gonna leave for?
When I see something like the moon landing, the China with the Branson landing, what exactly was it? Was it what kind of ship that they landed on the moon?
I don't know. They put one on the moon and it's some type of rover.
yeah.
On the dark side, though.
Right.
On the side that we didn't make it to
Yeah.
or just went and
And they
were
got
told not to
video
come
of it.
back.
It was a drone, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Sort of a drone?
So now this is more of what I would consider to be like the volley. This is more like tennis. So you're hitting back and forth pretty fast. So, but again, you can see where like when Joe's speaking, the camera's on him. When Mike is speaking, it's on him. They're not stepping on each other. There's nothing else going on in the background. They have your complete and undivided attention and each other's undivided attention. So even though they're talking about something where they're trying to find an answer to something and they're looking at Jamie to look something up for them, they're all actively listening to what's going on. So they're not ignoring what the person is saying and trying to think of their reply. They're just having a normal, organic conversation. So, and I hope I'm doing this right. I'm hoping you can hear the audio through this. I also have it coming through my microphone. So this is the first time I've really done where I'm sharing, my screen. So I'm giving this a shot. Normally I'll download and edit clips and paste those, but I wanted to try this and, for expediency. So let me do this where, now this is from Bill Maher. So let me see here.
Like, oh, okay. The more I get involved with marijuana, the longer I go into my career, the less I smoke, which is weird.
Well, I certainly hope you don't become one of those pussies who gives up entirely.
No.
I mean, if you give it up, people change, but like...
I like the old Rastas, man. Like, if you sit around and hang out one of them, they'll fucking smoke and give you life lessons and shit.
Well, like, my friend Woody Harrelson has quit a few times.
No.
But we always got him back.
Okay.
I mean, but I've done it. It's like an intervention in reverse.
Yeah.
I've done it once myself. I know Willie Nelson did it because
So I'm hoping you can hear this. And I know you can see it. So, but what's going on here is this, it's the back and forth. Bill's like reaching into a bucket of ice. So you've got all that noise going on. They're kind of laughing over each other. They're kind of talking over each other because they're not monitoring each other. They're not talking into microphones. They have like clip-on microphones, which is what Bill uses on his show. And that's great for a production show, where you're in a studio versus like this is in his house. So the setup is just not as good for communication, in conversation, where they're not monitoring each other. Like, because even like if you're laughing at somebody's joke, you stop laughing when you hear that person start talking again, because you're monitoring yourself and them at the same time. So this is a lot of what's happening in Bill's show. There's just a lot of this crosstalk, laughing over when somebody's trying to still continue talking. And I'm left, and I've asked a few friends, and they say the same thing, where like we're missing important statements that are being said because there's either ambient noise going on in the background, or people are talking over each other, or they're laughing while somebody else is still talking. So we're like, what did they say? And we don't know if that, what they said was important, because it's so much going on at one time. And like the camera flips are too frequent. Like it's almost feels like when somebody constantly does jump cuts in videos, where it almost becomes like a strobe light. It's like, whoa, simmer down. I know you learned a new editing trick. Don't use it after every sentence. I see that a lot in videos. And for people who think that's cool, great. It, to me, feels like a strobe light almost, because it's just jump cut after jump cut after jump cut. Don't have to use it after every time you finish the sentence. Say a couple of paragraphs and then do your cool jump cut trick. So just again, with communication, when I'm watching these two, I look at, the amount of times that Bill has been on Joe's show. So I would have thought he would have adapted that kind of quality. Stay in your basement, stay wherever this room is that you're doing this in, but stay in one place. You don't have to have your microphone mounted to a table like I do mine. You can set them up any different way you want. You can go back to like the 2-chair setup that Bill had, We had like William Shatner and Quentin Tarantino, and you can get these a different kind of boom to where it's, you know, just off the side of the chair, and the microphone is coming across kind of like this, and, you know, plug into where you can monitor yourselves. You know, you don't have to wear headphones. You can get, you know, ear monitors. You can get an IFB. So I'm sure that's what Bill uses whenever he's doing real time. And that's what you always see with the news people. It's that little coil cord. It's the IFB where they can hear their producer talking into their ear. But then I don't know if they're really truly able to monitor themselves. So and Joe has said this several times about how critically important it is and how it makes the conversation more seamless. So what are your thoughts on this? Have any of you guys watched these two, you know, or watch Bill's new podcast? I mean, I like the people that he has on there. The conversations are pretty decent. I just tune out after a few minutes because like 5-6 minutes in, I'm like, my God, these guys are just stepping all over each other. You know, it feels like you're at a restaurant, you know, and like there's music and all the people are talking at all the different tables, and you're at a different table trying to watch this conversation or you know, eavesdrop on this conversation. That's what Bill's show feels like to me. And again, it's in his infancy. I'm sure he's learning. I would just figure that with somebody with that much money and that many resources coming out of the gate, it would be phenomenal. It wouldn't need this learning curve. I know from my first videos to moving up to where I'm at now, you know, I feel like I've done better and better and better as I'm moving on. I've, you know, tried different rooms, different angles. And again, because I'm learning, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like I said, I'm doing this by myself. I don't have any producer or director or anything like that. I don't have any editing specialists. I just record, hit end, and upload. And that's it, you know, because that's the way I want it. I don't want to have to do any editing. I don't want to have to snip something out. I think about what I'm going to say, you know, and then I'll write down some notes about whatever topic I want to talk about, you know, that day. And I'll just come on here and have an organic conversation with you. So even whenever I've done interviews in the past, I don't write down a bunch of questions because I'm just trying to have a conversation with this person, you know, and how would I be talking to them if we were at a restaurant or at a bar or just out in a social setting? And that's how I do my interviews. So between the two, you know, and I'll do more of these, you know, with other people, but between these two, who do you think is the better conversationalist? And what do you think their strengths and weaknesses are? And do you think that Bill is as good as a conversationalist as he thinks he is? Or do you think he's a stronger moderator? Because I would think if Bill wanted to do something on the side, and because that's what this feels like, his little like side gig, I would think that with Bill's background and knowledge and resources financially, but just even his connections, that he would start a podcast production company. You know, I'm seeing that with a lot of people with, you know, where they've done that. You know, you look at all the people that are at Podcast One, the Young Turks, that have all these spinoffs, you know, and people that they're helping with their podcasts. You know, so I know, oh gosh, what's his name on Fox Sports One? Morning sports broadcaster. You know, he's got a podcast production company where he's helping people. You know, he's got celebrities and he's got young up and comers. And I would think where somebody like Bill, you know, who's got plenty of time on camera, he's got a big enough audience, you know, already doing his real time thing. What would you need to be doing something else for? You know, where you could use that time and your resources to help other people grow. You know, like-minded people, you know, or not. I don't know. But just could you use your resources better, you know, to do something like that versus what feels like a vanity project? You know, like I need more time. I need to be hipper or something. Because on this one, he's drinking a lot and he's smoking, you know, a lot of marijuana. And again, Joe does that. There's other people that do that and they do fine. It seems like with Bill's, these just become kind of convoluted and, you know, he's had a few different people on, Bella Thorne recently. It just, I don't know if he was either too high or had too much, you know, alcohol in him. And it was a very weird conversation. And then with this TikToker recently, it seemed like he didn't want to talk to the guy, didn't want to know his background. It was like he wanted to educate this guy. Like it's my responsibility, you know, as a senior to pass on my knowledge onto you. In like the first 5 minutes of this interview, that's what I felt like I just kept seeing over and over again, where Bill's teaching this kid about history. And, you know, it was just, I was like, I thought you had him on as a guest because you wanted to know more about this person, but you're talking at him instead of talking with him. So that's where I said, like, I just don't think that Bill's as good of a conversationalist as Joe and others are out there, where they're actively listening, they're engaged, you know, they're showing that their compassion and consideration. I want to know about you, what got you to where you are, what your plans are for the future, you know, and how can I help? So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Is this I'm gonna have to go back and listen to see if I can hear. I hope you can hear these two videos where I shared my screen. But what are your thoughts on this when it comes to when you're watching podcasts? Who has a better setup? You know, how do you like the way that they've got their microphones? Are they using microphones? Are they using clip-ons? Because some of these other ones, like the Young Turks and people like that, and CM Cedar and Jesse Dollamore, and there's, you know, whoever it is. You know, Russell Brand uses a microphone, but the other guys are more like a news kind of broadcast. So they have a tendency to use like clip-on microphones because they're trying to be more like the news. But I know Sam uses a microphone like this, and so does David Pakman. So, and they're news oriented. So it just, I don't know. I see all kinds of different things. When you're watching podcasts, which are the ones that when you're watching them visually, so whether it's on YouTube or Rumble or another platform, which ones do you have a tendency to enjoy more, where you're watching the majority of the video? Because I'd be curious to know what the average runtime on Bill's videos are, or his average view time. You know, are most of the people watching the whole thing? Are they like me, where you've got to bail? It's like, oh, this is just, it just seems too clumsy. And I would expect more from that. Like I said, with somebody who's got the resources, who could bring, you know, some of the production people in from real time and say, hey, help me get this set up, because I don't know what I'm doing. You know, you guys do it for me every Friday night. I need you to help me get set up in my house. So I don't know. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. And I'm going to keep talking for the next few weeks and months about communication. You know, so how are we conversing? And I just kind of wanted to show you, like, here are two podcasters, because they both have podcasts, you know, and how are they communicating with their guests, you know, and the conversations, how are they steering? Because never is there a time where Joe's running out of things to say. You know, even in these 3 hour long, I mean, it's a marathon, 3 hours of just talking back and forth, because there's always something to talk about. And if that person stumbles or they run out of things that they want to say, Joe pounces on it, carries them, you know, by asking them something else. Even if it's something that they don't know about, he'll just ask them just to keep the conversation going. But so I think he does a really great job of that. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Leave a comment down below, and we'll talk to you the next time. Take care.